Okay, welcome in. I had a really fun and tricky endgame in a recent game of mine. I'm playing with black pieces. I'm down material, so both sides have two rooks. Black has four pawns. White only has three pawns, but white has a knight. So essentially, white has a knight for a pawn. White is much better in this position, but black has the advantage of king safety. So the white king is pretty open. The passed h pawn for black is close, and the two rooks are kind of x-raying this king, whereas the black king for now is pretty safe with these two pawns protecting it. So it's black to move. I went with the move rook to g7. The idea here is just to cut off the g file from the king, so the king obviously cannot escape anymore on the g file, trying to sort of create this net around the king, and white responded here with rook to c4. I think this was in response to me sort of moving my rook away and abandoning the defense of my h-pawn. You know, this rook, nice rook lift, now attacks my h-pawn, sort of wants to clear that out of the way. But the problem is that it gives my d2 square a knight, or d2 rook a nice square to go to. This rook kind of wasn't doing much before. It was sort of pinning this pawn, but you know, white's rook was protecting the pawn. But now white undefended his back rank, so I just played rook to d1, and now I have kind of unfettered access to the king because of this, you know, abandoning the defense of the back rank. So something you always want to keep defended, especially in situations like this. White is still okay here. The correct move to play would be b5, and this carries a lot of really dangerous threats. If black makes, you know, some random move here, like rook to g1, doubling up on the g file, then white has checkmated just a couple of moves. White would play b6. If the king retreats to the 8th rank, then rook to c8 is checkmate. The king is protecting the rook. The pawn is protecting the escape square. And if if the king takes the pawn, then we have this really nice checkmated one. Knight to c8, checking the king, preventing this escape square, and then all these squares around the king are attacked by the rooks, and then these two potential escape squares are blocked by the pawns. So really nice finishing checkmate there. So this would be the correct move. Then if you know, black didn't ignore it and black played captures on b5, then rook, the white rook just captures on b5, and you know, white is threatening checkmate with rook to c4 in the next move. So all that said, b5 is the proper move. What my opponent played was to kind of prepare b5, a4. So now there's even more support for on the next move if he plays b5. But the problem here is that it allows my rooks to get in position. It gives black a little bit of extra time to sort of get black's pieces into position. So here, rook to g1 is the move, doubling up on the g file. And now this looks a little bit scary because the white king is here, and we have these two rooks that are connected and ready to kind of harass this king and potentially deliver checkmate. So I want you to take a second here and see if you can find the one move for white that sort of, you know, keeps the winning edge. This is still a fine position for white, but you have to find this move to make sure you kind of can stay in the game. Okay, so the proper move is rook takes on f7. Looks like it hangs a rook, rook takes back on f7, but then the king takes the rook, hanging now on g1, and white is totally fine here. And this is a move that's kind of hard to ignore. You know, obviously, if black just makes a random move, you know, this is a nice check with the knight. The pawn is pinned by the rook, so that's a nice move. And so rook to f7 is the proper defense here, and then white can kind of continue with his plan of breaking down the king's defenses. Instead, white played rook to h4. Rook captures an h4, taking away my passed pawn, and white probably feels pretty good here. My passed pawn is gone. Now white is up. You know, white just has a full knight for no compensation. There's this attack coming to the black king, and now we have these two white rooks kind of near the king, ready to defend any issues that come up. You know, this pawn is defending the g3 square, so my rooks can't go there. So, you know, white feels like he should be fine. However, the game is over. The black can now not win the game, but force a perpetual checking situation that will lead to a draw. So see if you can find the proper move for black in this position. Okay, so as you probably guessed, black wants to play a check on g2. It can't be the g7 rook to g2, because then the king can escape to h3, and now black doesn't really have a move. You can't play check on g3 because the pawn takes, and you can't play a check on b1 because then the king takes the rook. So instead of playing the g7 rook, the correct move here is the g1 rook to g2 with check. And now this is where it gets really tricky for the white king. So the white king has 2 squares to go to. If the white king goes to h1, black is happy to just deliver check on h1, force the king back to h2, rook back to g2, and we're back where we started. You know, if you keep doing that, obviously that is perpetual check, and the game will end in a draw. So instead of doing that, instead of kind of going to this h1 square, which is an obvious perpetual, white tries to escape with king to h3. But now the problem here is that black has this really nice, really sneaky move. You know, it seemed to white that black is kind of stuck here because black can't play, you know, a g3 check because the pawn is protecting g3. But instead of playing the immediate check, black threatens an even more deadly check with rook to g1. And now the king is not in check right now. However, black is threatening rook to h1 checkmate on the next move. So, you know, imagine white makes a random move. This would be checkmate. You know, this is a checkmate you often see like in an endgame with just 2 rooks and a king, you know, in many beginner games. So the g rook is taking off the g file, the h rook is taking off the h file, and the king is totally trapped in this checkmate. And there's only one way to prevent this checkmate. You know, technically you could, you know, give away some silly checks with knight and then the rook, but there's only one serious way to stop this checkmate. These rooks can't come to the defense of the king because they can't possibly get to the h1 square. The king can't move away. The only way to stop this checkmate is, you guessed it, king to h2. And now black has the same move. Black can just play king to g2, just like where we were. White repeats with h3. Rook moves to g1, threatening checkmate on h1. Only way to stop checkmate, king to h2, and we go back and forth and repeat. And after 3 times, that is a draw. So a really funny position where white totally had the advantage, had plenty of chances to win. Up material, you know, black's position is about to fall apart. But if you are not careful and you let rooks kind of messing around in the back rank, they can make trouble for the king, even when it seems you're safe. They can force perpetual by kind of forcing this checkmate. And even though it seems, or threatening this checkmate on h1, and even though it seems like these rooks are protecting the king, they're really not. They're actually in the way. They're blocking the king, and they can't really protect the crucial squares around the king. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Always be careful in your endgames, even when you're up, because it can turn in a second. You know, even if you don't lose the game, it's never fun to go from a win to a draw. We'll see you next time.